Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Continuing the Conversation. As always, I'm your host, Aaron Merchant with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. Could not be more excited to be joined today by Erica Phillips with the National Association for Family Childcare. Erica, before we dive in, can you introduce yourself just a little bit?
Hi, Aaron. Thank you so much for having me here. My name is Erica Phillips, and I am the Executive Director of the National Association for Family Childcare. And I'm so excited to be continuing the conversation with you here today.
So, Erica, you were kind enough to join us this last June for the National Childcare Innovation Summit. Very excited to talk a little bit more about the National Association for Family Childcare, talk about ways in which employers can connect with family childcare homes and networks, ways in which the business community can be more supportive of childcare at-home providers. But first, I have to ask, your undergraduate degree is in engineering, and now you're the executive director of this huge childcare advocacy organization. What was that journey like?
As you alluded to, it's not necessarily one of the most straightforward transitions to go from engineering to leading a family childcare advocacy organization. But it has given me all of these experiences that I'm able to build on and really understand the challenges that businesses and families are going through. And so to answer how I made that transition, I'm going to really briefly take you back to my origin story, which my family is from South Philadelphia. My parents lived on the same block in South Philadelphia. And so growing up, that street really formed the cornerstone of my family. And at the middle of that block was my grandmother's house. And she cared for all of my cousins and children in the community. And as I grew up, I saw how important that was because South Philadelphia in the 80s and 90s was not the most welcoming, supportive place for young children. And I was able to go on to college, was set on having a good career where I could earn a good living and be able to help and give back to my community. And so I ended up doing engineering as somebody who liked math and science, but always felt really committed and passionate about giving back to communities like the one that my family was from. And I just thought about what my grandmother did and how that was critical for young children in having a safe place to learn and grow where they felt affirmed, but also for my parents and other family members who they were able to go off knowing that their children were in a safe place. And finally, an opportunity for my grandmother to have a small business where she's able to earn money doing what she loved to do. Unfortunately, my grandmother eventually did have to go back to work, and she was the beloved lunch lady. But I always thought in the back of my head, what if what she was trying to do had been supported by communities, by systems, and stumbled on the concept of a home-based childcare program, also known as a family childcare program. And so I, at that time, was on my way to business school with this idea of really transforming communities through home-based childcare programs and having these small businesses that would have those benefits that I talked about for children, for parents, and for the providers themselves. Shortly into pursuing this idea, it became clear to me that what everybody knows now, which is that we have a broken market for childcare, and the idea of running a thriving childcare business is too hard for most small business owners, most childcare providers that are doing this work, particularly if you're working in communities and caring for families who don't have a lot of money to pay for childcare themselves. And so once I started to really look into what is the childcare business models look like, it was very evident to me that we needed more solutions, and that between parents and providers, there wasn't enough resources, and we needed to bring other people involved. We needed to get other people involved in our childcare crisis, because we all rely on childcare, not just families, but our businesses rely on childcare. Our our governments rely on childcare. We are uh, the essential service that enables the rest of the economy to work. And from that point on, I've been really focused on bringing in new solutions to make caring for children a little bit easier, and to I've been focused on solutions to make this a little bit easier for families. It's very long.
Definitely. No, I mean it's important context, and it was a beautiful story that I think really touched on two big things. One, that how much childcare providers are tent poles of their community, really pillars that allow, like you said, everybody else to be able to go to work, pursue their passions. And I also think that something that's often overlooked in these conversations, at least in my circles, there's a lot of focus on the care, but also that these are small businesses, and especially the family childcare homes, or the home-based childcare. And I'm curious, what do you see as the biggest differences, or maybe put another way, the unique challenges of a home-based provider when it comes to childcare, as opposed to a childcare center?
Right. So that's a great question. And I'm gonna always flip it and start with the positive, because there are amazing opportunities from family childcare homes. And so these are uh, home-based childcare programs that are caring for small groups of children. Some of them are licensed and may care from anywhere from 6 to 15 children. Others might be what we call license exempt, and so they are only caring for very small numbers of children, often related to them, and sometimes we call that family, friend, and neighbor caregivers. So there are so many reasons that family childcare homes are critical to communities. I mean, first, because of that small size, parents often prefer that type of environment. You have a really low teacher to child ratio. You know exactly who is going to be interacting with your children. In addition to that, you get a lot of personalized attention and updates from your family child care provider. Other reasons, because they are so small, they're able to be very conveniently located or accessible. We see family child care homes as essential to rural communities. They're also able to be located close to where families either live or work. And so the amount of flexibility they can offer is really dynamic. They also are the ones that are most likely to offer before hour care, late care, weekend care. And so for families who are working gig jobs or off hours, family childcare homes are essential to making that work. The last thing that I'll say about it is they have something called a mixed age model, which enables families to benefit in many different ways. If you have children who are different ages, they can go to the same program. In addition to that, your child is able to stay with the same caregiver for multiple years, and that has been linked with higher quality. And I know I said that was the last thing, but the one other thing I want to talk about family childcare is their cultural and their linguistic diversity. Every community has a family childcare home setting, and any family, if they're looking for a particular type of setting for their child, is able to find that in family childcare, whether it's supporting their religious or linguistic or family values. There's a family childcare program who will speak to that for any type of family. The challenges are incredibly significant. As small businesses, they operate off of incredibly small margins. They often will make less than minimum wage after you account for all of the expenses that goes into running a family childcare program. One study put it at $5 to $6 an hour. And because of that, they're not able to save for retirement or put away for some of their family goals, and might decide to leave the field because of the economic pressures of not being able to make a lot of money in running a family child care program. Unfortunately, over the last 15 years, over 90,000 family child care programs have closed. Which is about a quarter of the capacity. And the financial reasons is one of the biggest reasons that we've heard from these programs and these providers that are closing. And it's that at the end of the day, they're not able to make enough money to care for their families, to meet their own personal and professional goals. And so even though they love this work, they're not able to continue. And that creates the childcare deserts and the crunches that we see for families all over.
So, Erica, I'm wondering, as you know, sort of obviously, I guess, but to reiterate that the folks that we work with the most are, companies, employers, the business community. And so I'm wondering, like the list of positives that come from family childcare home settings, I think are undeniable. And I'm kind of a two-pronged question. The first is, if you were an employer or a chamber of commerce and you're recognizing that your community doesn't have enough childcare or you're not aware of the different types of childcare, what would be your recommendation for how that employer or business leader could connect with either a family childcare home or network of family childcare homes? So how do you make that connection? And then the follow-up question to that is, what would you see as an ideal sort of partnership between family childcare home network and an employer or a group of employers?
That's a great question. So for chambers of commerce and companies who are out there, I have a few recommendations for how to leverage the family childcare ecosystem that exists. The first is recognizing that they're also small business owners. And we have several members of the National Association for Family Childcare who are active participants in their local chambers of commerce. And through doing that, they're able to benefit from the networking opportunities. They are able to add some of their needs and concerns to the legislative agendas that many chambers of commerce already put forward. And so that is something that we encourage our members to find their local chamber of commerce, to go to those meetings. I think chambers of commerce can make those more accessible by having them after hours, again, because they're working, caring for other people's children. They're often not able to get out during the day. But many of our members are very interested in the resources that come from a chamber of commerce. The second thing that I would say is there are many networks of family childcare homes that already exist. We, as the National Association, have, for example, state affiliates who provide resources and communication to family childcare homes within their local state or community. And so I would recommend you can go to the National Association for Family Child Care's website, and there we have a map where for every state we've identified the family child care leader in that community, and he or she can connect. Can be a resource to connect with the networks of family child care homes. And so that is another resource to chambers of commerce. And the last thing is to join us in advocacy, to join us in pushing for holistic, comprehensive solutions for families, of all economic backgrounds, of all types, having access to high quality, affordable childcare. We've seen many innovative solutions with public funding and private funding coming together. But just really realizing that the Chamber of Commerce and businesses have a strong voice and should not be doing this alone. Should be adding support to some of the solutions that already exist.
And I think you really hit on an important, you know, piece of this is we look at, whether it's the U.S. Chamber and Chamber Foundation's role or sort of like broadly business communities, but especially when we think about some of the areas that you mentioned, especially rural communities or especially communities that have high population density. And we're at this sort of interesting intersection right now where with a lot of business leaders, it's very clear that we need to do something about childcare. I would say there hasn't been an employer that I've spoken with that's like, well, the business community should take this over. Like we should just run all childcare supports through employers. But there is also a feeling of, okay, well, we need an ideal childcare system, but that could be a ways down the road. So what can we do now? And I wonder if you have a sort of best practice, either like here's things that a business community like could do that would be the right thing to do, taking this, we need to do something now, but also working towards something greater. Or conversely, like this is something that is maybe well-intentioned, but like, please do not do this, right? When you're looking at your childcare options. Because I agree that like the business community absolutely has a role to play, and the business leaders that I talk to want to be part of the solution. But there is, like I said, this push-pull between like, okay, well, we need to do something now, but we don't want what we do now to negatively impact this bigger picture that we're working towards.
That is, that's a great tension. And I do understand, the challenges between doing things now and the broader system change that we're all advocating for. There are some policy solutions that the business community can join forces with family child care homes to support in a more immediate, near-term way. One area that we would surface that's actually relatively low cost is around housing policy when it comes to running a child care program from your home. There's actually a lot of restrictions and burdensome rules that cities and states and sometimes landlords or housing associations place that limit a person's ability to run a family child care program from their home. And so we've been working to pass legislation that expands the ability for somebody to get licensed and to operate a family child care home. It's something that doesn't sacrifice health and safety of children and helps to expand access to child care supply. And so that is, something that in looking for policy wins that a business community could support is, understanding what some of those barriers might be. Again, in partnership with the child care providers who likely already know these and can educate the business community or the Chamber of Commerce on some of the challenges that they're facing. The second thing that is helpful is doing outreach to the family child care homes. They are often looking for, places to meet or different resources in order to run their family child care programs. And so if your business has some resources or space or things that a home-based child care program would be able to benefit from, making that available, building that relationship, and by contributing to their sustainability and building those relationships, then they'll, one, be there for the families who you are employing, who need care, but will also help with communication and perhaps if they have a better understanding of what hours might be needed by this particular industry, they can adjust their childcare program in order to be more responsive to the local businesses in their community. And so really just reaching out, seeing what do the childcare programs in your community need, building those relationships is important. I think, one of the things that is the most challenging is when we see businesses building large childcare centers that displace the childcare that is already in the community. And so we encourage you to do landscape scans if you're thinking about this, to go to the local childcare resource and referral agency to get a list of the licensed childcare programs in the community before doing that, because we do have infrastructure for childcare. It is about making the connections between the infrastructure that is there and the families and the businesses who need childcare.
Good. I think that is incredibly helpful, and I am already thinking about different resources that we at the foundation can create to, sort of disperse amongst our networks and walk folks through some of the recommendations that you just gave before, like you said, like breaking ground or diving into to something maybe in trying to create a solution, creating a ripple effect of maybe unintended consequences. Eric, you've been so generous with your time today, and I can't thank you enough for joining us. Is there anything coming up that you'd like to talk about, whether a conference or a new resource coming out, anything that you want to flag for our viewers before we head out?
A couple of things I'd love to flag. So we will have a new brief coming out around supporting the ability to run a childcare program from a home-based setting within the next month. And so we'll be excited to share that, but we have been working on updating our position around family childcare housing and where housing intersect. In addition to that, we just launched a new mini documentary. It is about 20 minutes long that takes you into 4 different amazing family childcare homes around the country. There's one in California, Pennsylvania, Florida, and Wisconsin. And that's a great opportunity to see what happens, to hear how families are benefiting from family childcare. And so we'll share that. But if there are any people who are curious, what does a home-based childcare program look like? Please check that out. It's called We Are Family Childcare, and it's a great way to have a window into what these programs look like and how they offer support to families. And the last thing is we do an annual conference. It is in July of every year. We will be in Dallas, Texas next year, and would love to welcome any partners who want to learn more about family childcare to that conference.
Well, Erica, again, thank you so much for continuing the conversation. We'll absolutely keep an eye out for that documentary. I'm excited about that. And again, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.